You are listening to the Taste Antidote Show.
He's a YouTube Lindsay Lohan, without the jail time.
And now your host, Brock Lawley.
Hello. My name is Brock Lawley. You know, this podcast is going to be much more lighthearted because I am just drowning in the doom and gloom, the fog of eternal stench that is today's highlights and today's headlines. And I literally can't take it. I don't think you can take it. You know, that's the thing, too, is it's a blitzkrieg of sewage pipe crap. And I think that's how they get us in a lot of ways because we just become numb to it. But anyway, I'm going to take the bait today because I just can't take it. I'm going to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted. And I also am thrilled to introduce you to my new sponsor, Putin Pills for Pansies. Time to get paid!
Hello, my friends. It is Ricardo the Russian. I am here to talk to you about a product I know you would like. It will boost your testosterone dramatically. I alone have seen such results that all the ladies want me. Back alley studies show testosterone levels in boys will drop, leaving them feeling like girly Frenchmen. No effort, no lifestyle change, no working hard, just pop pills and drink vodka. Order your Putin pills at putinpillsforpansies.com.
Fantastic. Thank you very much to my new sponsor, Putin Pills for Pansies. Sounds like a wonderful product, but I don't really need it. For all the obvious reasons, but it's very likely that you do. So be sure to get on the horn and dial up them digits. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk to you today about music. You know, some of you might not know this, but music is a big part of my life. I play in bands, I make records, I really love the craft of songwriting. And I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, you know, this interesting conversation which is music and the consumption of music and how that has changed in, you know, the last 10 years, just drastically changed. You know, I call it like the MP3 throwaway. My youngest brother, he just like listens to all his music on YouTube for free. You know, it's really, really an interesting thing. So you have like the commerce side where art and commerce kind of have a little bit of a tenuous relationship anyway. Certainly that's the case now. But also just the way people consume music. You know, think about it. When it's not paid for, it's not as valued. Now that just happens naturally, at least to some extent. And that's not even a case for people to turn back the clock and have everybody paying for music. I'm not even necessarily asking for that. On one side of the coin, I don't really know how music survives in its present form without some form of marriage with commerce. But you know that you know things will evolve, things will happen. It'll be an interesting thing to see. But how music hits the listener has changed too. You know, I'll just give you a very, very simple example. You know, instead of consuming a record, which would be a compilation, a combination of songs that a particular artist hit in a particular season of his artistic career that, you know, maybe have a certain mood or a flow or a feel, that's all gone because your MP3, you know, generation doesn't really work like that. You know, so it's interesting to hear my brother talk about songs he loves and then he doesn't even really know the artist to the song. So it's so piecemeal, you know what I mean? It's so, I don't know, it's so hodgepodge. Now this can fork in two different ways. On the one hand, you know, you can really expose yourself to a massive amount of music because it's so accessible. And, you know, you can just Spotify and you can Pandora your way into just music consumption, you know, banquet style. But on the other side, you can become a little bit of a musical incestuous, you know, Appalachian trail kind of guy, because, you know, Pandora will, you know, you type in Mumford & Sons, and then it just, every song is like Mumford & Sons, or somebody sounds like a Mumford & Sons, and you're not really experiencing like this vast, you know, wide-reaching, wide-casting net of music. So it's just so interesting how these new technologies kind of change things. And I remember, you know, I'd be like in my early adolescent years, I'd be driving with one of my friends, you know, newly minted driver's license, and we'd be coming back from hanging out with girls or whatever the case may be, and it'd be like a dark, you know, quiet drive home, and you'd have music on, and it would just seep into you, you know what I mean? You'd just become a mega fan, because, I don't know, you'd connect that with certain emotional experiences on the timeline of your life, or it would become the soundtrack of some wonderful moment, some Wonder Years moment. I guess these things happen, but I wonder if before you'd almost become like a proselytizer of the music you listen to. You have this friend always barking in your ear about this band that's just out of this crazy epic world, and there was all these different things going on, and I just wonder, how does that play out anymore? It's such an interesting thing because it's all in flux, and that's the one thing. And the other side that I find so interesting is the actual making of music, because with all the new technologies, you can make great stuff on your laptop. There's just all this accessibility to the making of music. The thing I find to be a curious question is, what will be the motivation for somebody to go through the arduous discipline of learning an instrument when to consume and compose music, that's not completely necessary? Now, I've had people tell me, oh, you're all wet about this, Brock, you're all wrong, because there's always going to be people who want to do this. I think there's going to be people who want to do this like there are people who want to continue to play like, the old medieval lute, just to keep the arts alive. There'll be some outliers that do that, but I don't know if they're right about this not completely changing the way we look at it. If you can consume music with all this digital representation, which you can, and quite effectively, I might add, you can still do the creation of music. You can still hear the melody in your head. You can still write the lyrics. You can still compose the song, and you don't actually need to play the instrument. Now, the live stage becomes a bit of a problem there. But even as we've seen, things like GarageBand and all this digital accessibility to sounds, and you can mimic things, I just don't know. Who knows how that shapes out? I'm not 100% sure. And is that good? Because there's something intangible. There's something you can't quite describe, touch, or feel about a human being playing the instrument. It's in the imperfections, it's in the beauty, it's in the experience, in the moment. So is that lost? Is that thrown on the heap pile of all this new technology? It's just fascinating stuff. I haven't solidified an opinion one way or the other, but I do find that whole topic of conversation to be quite interesting. I hope you did too. This is the Atheist Antidote Show.
You are listening to the Atheist Antidote Show.